Welcome one and all. And it's time for some sweet and spicy hobby action. Especially for those of you who are in lockdown at the moment looking for some sizzling entertainment in the hobby realm. Now, it's probably going to be a bit quieter than my other videos because the microphone is a little bit further away. Usually it's right here, but obviously I'll put the microphone there because that's where I'm operating right now. And as you can see, we've got some sweet, juicy, tender, succulent and moist Abyssal Dwarf resin goodness here. Out on the table already, I've got some grotesques. Got the Hellfane right here. Also got the grotesque champion around here somewhere. Let's see, I've got it in its own little box right here. All the pieces for that bad boy. So we'll see if we get to that. I'm going to start with one regiment of grotesques though. We're going to do 3 of those and then hopefully get to the Hellfane, which is right here. And then we'll see what we've got time for after that. I'm going to be referring to the chat a lot, by the way, to drive the entertainment factor here. So feel free to drop any questions or comments in there. People talking so far about the kind of deals you can get if you're looking on eBay for wargaming related stuff at the moment. Lots of people who may be a bit strapped for cash in this current crisis have been listing a few things on eBay probably. Things that they've just had sitting around in a box gathering dust like we all have. We've all got just endless boxes of stuff we're never going to use. And in a time like this, people think, you know what, why don't I just sell it because I could use the money. Never going to use it anyway, let's cash in now. So there are some deals to be had out there. I think I've got a few things on eBay at the moment, but not too much. I've always got something listed on there. Selling quite a few Stormcast Eternal unpainted models. Okay, so let's get started then. First thing, you're going to see my finger in this video and you'll see that it's got some kind of bandage on it. That's because there was a grievous finger injury caused when I was slicing the head off a Mantic Hellboy frog monster. I had the model gripped in a vice and I was removing its head so that I could apply the head to this rather hideous, let's get some light in this situation here. That's better. So this rather hideous conversion I've been working on, which is going to be a Shadow Hulk for my Night Stalker's army. You can see the head right there under the armpit. That's from the Hellboy Frog Monster boss. And I was removing that with a razor saw and had it pinned in a vice. When I say pinned, I mean gripped in a vice. And the model slipped out of the vice, which caused the saw to plough unceremoniously into my knuckle, which is very annoying because it means I shouldn't really be bending my finger. So we're kind of one finger down for this operation, but I'm right-handed, so it's fine. Let's get the clippers out, shall we? Can't do any kind of sweet hobby action without that. Chris says, how is Mantic resin? Do you find it better or worse to work with than plastic? I haven't had any issues with the Mantic resin. With resin in general, people often say that you have to wash it first, but I've never actually done that with any resin model I've owned, and I've never had any issues with paint not sticking to it. So I don't know whether that's a myth or whether I've just been incredibly lucky. The actual models themselves have all been very nice, the new Mantic resins. I had quite a few now. I've got the Abyssal Dwarf Greater Obsidian Golem, and I've also got some of the new Vanguard stuff in as well. It's all been very nice, haven't really had any issues with it yet. So let's start clipping these bad boys out. They are quite grotesque, as their name would suggest. See if we can get some of these finished, built today. So I'm just going to snip the big chunks off first, and then we'll get in there with the knife and see if there are any mould lines that need to be extracted. I say extracted, they're then going to be something, but right. So some of the hands on these grotesques are a bit weird looking. Obviously, since they're just created purely for combat, throwing them into battle with no thought for their well-being, then they don't really have hands that could be used for anything other than fighting. Just giant big spikes strapped to them if they're not growing out of them. Helen says, I'm about to start my first Kings of War army. I have some Warhammer Chaos stuff and some minis from Conquest, the last argument of Kings, that I'm going to mesh into forces of the Abyss army. Interesting. Yeah, the good thing about Kings of War, whatever miniature collection you have, whichever models you own in the fantasy genre, even vaguely in the fantasy genre, then there's usually something you can do with them. There's so many armies available in the Kings of War line, or when they don't have miniatures available, they've got rules for so many armies. Okay, we haven't lost any pieces accidentally so far, of me or the miniatures. One thing I would always be concerned about with resin is whether it's brittle or not, but we haven't had any unfortunate snappages so far. Like you can see, a piece like this foot here, there's a tiny little like spike at the back of the foot, and you'd think when you slice through there, there's a risk that it would also snap down that point. So those would be the things you generally look out for with resin. If there's a part that looks like it's a weak point and you're clipping right next to it, then you've got to keep those things in mind, but no issues. And of course, anytime you clip, you've also got to think about which parts of the model you're going to be putting stress on. If you clip something from this end, the clipper is going to force its way kind of underneath there and put stress over on this side as well. So look out for any joints like that and make sure you're not overexerting the kind of upward force. That looks like a potential weak spot on this side. Okay, this is quite a big chunk here. Just going to be very careful with it. In fact, you know what? Let's get this central piece out of the way first. That's possible. So there's less pressing against the model. Of course, you can cut these off with a saw perhaps, but I'm a bit wary about going for the saw, that recent incident that I described. Okay, nice and clean so far. So, making a nice pile of parts. This one doesn't seem to be attached to anything right now. Chris says, I'm glad the resin isn't too bad then. I haven't worked with it much yet. I've always been wary of it due to what people have said online. What have people been saying online about Mantic? I haven't heard too much negativity about it. Thing resin that I would be concerned of is always just the brittleness, potentially, though. Some companies are obviously worse than others. A couple of notable examples in history, if you look at like Finecast, then that was notoriously weak, soft, and give it out in the sun and everything starts drooping. But most resins are a bit better. All good so far. Like here. However, if something does break in the snipping or cleaning process with resin, I often find that it's quite a clean break. It's not like metal, where sometimes you'll bend something and it's just totally beyond the point of repair and you just have to replace it with something else. With resin, it typically does just snap pretty clean if it is going to break, so it can be stuck back on usually in the same spot. Which is something I like about plastic as well. If something breaks, usually plastic glue will make the bond just as strong as it was before it broke. But that's one downside to metal if there's damage to it. While you can bend it back into place, it does get weaker every time you do that. So it's not ideal. If you've got lots of metal spearmen, then you'll know that pain. When the same spear has been bent multiple times, eventually it just doesn't go back the same. Okay, got some bits of flash here. I haven't seen too many ridiculous mould lines so far. Nice. Saw a few when I was looking at the Grotesque champion earlier. A few mould lines on that. So we'll see if we get to that today. Let's get rid of all these chunks that we don't want then. Four Star must have just joined us because he said, what happened to your finger? I was decapitating a miniature and it slid out of the vise and the razor saw ploughed into my knuckle, which produced quite a lot of blood. It was quite comical because when my finger was straight, it was just like a gentle trickle of blood, but then if I bent my finger, like I'll show you with a healthy finger, like that, there was a gentle trickle of blood coming out. If I went like that, then it would be like psh, like a torrent of blood. So it's not been bleeding since shortly after it was bandaged up though. And there doesn't seem to be any long-term damage. I'm just keeping it straight for a few days just to make sure it's healed properly before I start bending it again, so I don't interfere with the healing process. You can actually see there's a slight wound on this hand as well. This was the hand that was holding the saw, and this finger went into the side of the vise at the same time, so there's a bit of a wound there as well. Okay, all the pieces. We're obviously not going to put them on bases because I'm going to multi-base them, and I've got the multi-base that I'm going to use right here. I'm not working on this yet, just going to do the miniatures for now, but this is going to be corked up real nice. I'm thinking about putting 5 on it rather than 6. I like a little bit of space in there. And I think I need to sneeze. Nope, false alarm for now. The sneeze waits for the moment. Got quite a few viewers in here so far. Chris says it was mainly about Finecast, but just being more brittle, or sometimes it could be a bit warped. Yeah, Finecast was pretty awful, especially at the start. You got a lot of bubbles in it, and it just bends all over the place. Even if you bend it back to its correct shape, you'd find that later, because of the heat, it would kind of droop. So I pity people that live in hot climates when Finecast was the hot new thing. Okay, snip out little pieces now, because you do get little connection parts that sometimes you don't spot until you're actually painting. It's unfortunate, but most of these look fairly obvious. Occasionally you will have a moment where you accidentally cut something off that's supposed to be part of the model. Like, for example, if we look at this one here, see there are a couple of little spikes sticking out the side of the arm there. Now I think all of those are supposed to be there. But if you accidentally do take off something like that, it's not a big issue with resin because you can easily kind of scrape it down so it's flat, so it just looks like that part was never meant to be there in the first place. Okay, so we've got a couple of chin connection points here. They're going to be snipped right off. I don't think that's a bit of sinew. I think that is something that's not supposed to be there as well. That gone. Once we've cleaned them all up, then we'll work out which piece goes with which miniature as well. They're looking fairly mould line free so far, these pieces, which is nice. I want to see more comments in there, by the way, folks. That's going to drive all the conversation and entertainment in here. Not sure I can fill up an hour's worth of talking about the quality of resin. A few bits of flash on some of the claws, but that's easy to get rid of. And I'm not sure what the options are going to be like for reposing these guys, which is mainly why I'm only going to do 3 today, because I have actually got 6. But there's 3 main poses, so I'm going to do the first 3 as nature intended, and then probably off camera I'll try and fiddle with the other 3, because that could be quite a lengthy process trying to get them into poses. I'll probably show you the end results though. Sometimes it'll require chopping off connection points and smoothing things down and maybe re-sculpting a shoulder perhaps because you want it at a different angle. If you've seen my trolls for my goblin army, you'll have seen that I've done that a lot with those because they only have limited poses. So I've bent a lot of those arms either with hot water or just chopping off bits and then green stuffing the joints. Matthew recently got a Resin 3D printer, so I've been getting really good at hunting down all those little struts and supports. Chris says he was playing Dark Souls 3 while watching. I'll be pulling out my hobby stuff soon, though I'm hoping to paint up my models for Blackstone Fortress. Interesting. Yeah, those are some nice models. So, this knife, got lots of blades for this knife, but it's kind of at the sweet spot now for mould line removal. It's not too sharp anymore, so you don't want to accidentally chop off someone's leg when you're trying to just get the mould line flash. I'm not sure what's more dangerous though with these knives, a really sharp one or a really blunt one. If it's really blunt, you end up pushing harder against the model, which can fly off and slam into your finger quite easily. But if it's really sharp, obviously, then when it does slam into your finger, it's going to do a lot more damage. Going to be scraping away now at this, and like I said, if I accidentally break off any of these nice little spikes, then I'm just going to smooth down the walls, because they're supposed to be hideous mutant monstrosities anyway. Would be an issue. The bottom of the foot where there was a little bit of resin snipped off there, you need to be careful with the knife. You don't want to push too hard on it, accidentally take something off. And remember, always cut towards yourself. I think the rule is you're actually supposed to cut away from yourself, but is that really feasible? I say no. And, ooh, we found a little bit of a mould line. It's only when you turn it at a certain angle, but I think we should just be able to scrape that off with the knife quite easily. By the way, for anyone that wasn't watching yesterday, I did a live stream of playing Space Hulk Deathwing, the PC game. And I may do more of that at some point if anyone's interested in actually watching it. I'm also going to be streaming some Vermintide with Mr. Remington Steele as well at some point. We did try it last week, but settings that I had for it weren't optimal. It wasn't very good quality, so I took that down. Only the best on this channel, obviously. And that's going to be better next time. Something to do with bit rates and all that complicated streaming nonsense. Have it set at the wrong number, then it stutters the video. How much information it's allowing through and how fast and all that. Needlessly complicated, if you ask me. In your view, how would you compare the models to GW's? Well, if we're comparing them to GW's Resin, then I would compare them very favourably, just in terms of the material quality. Mantic in general, the last year or two, I'd say they're starting to get up there. They're not like, in terms of the detail and the quality, they're not like the current GW. Current GW is way over the top in whole design process. Everything's pretty crazy. Have like people supported by scrolls floating in the air, tiny little fragile pieces that Mantic certainly haven't gone down that avenue yet. Mantic are very much in the chunky camp. So it's in terms of quality, the current Mantic stuff is kind of like GW from a few years ago, I'd say. Some of their new Mantic plastics, which is a fine spot to be in. And I don't know whether they would ever go the GW route. Lots of little flimsy parts that are actually supporting the model. Right, got a little piece in there, which may have been a spike that's fallen, but can't really tell. So I'm going to have to snip it down. Don't know if you can see. Let's get the knife pointing at it. It looks like something may have snapped off there. Or it could have been a support that's in a bit of an awkward spot, so I'm going to have to clip that out and then try and clean it up a bit. While being careful not to catch anything else with the clippers at the same time. Just breaking it up with the clippers, and then we'll get in there with the knife. Finish that off. Really, I just want to get everything as smooth as possible. The way I'm going to paint these, if you've seen my Overmaster on Ancient Winged Half-Breed, then I'm going to be painting it like the Ancient Winged Half-Breed's face, which is kind of a reddy, orangey, lots of dry brushing onto a smooth-ish surface. There's not hard edges, so it's a different kind of dry brushing. It's kind of faded. And there's also washes and contrast paints involved in the style. Used it on my gargoyles as well. I think they're going to look really good with that style, these models. It's good for kind of smooth skin, because while you are dry brushing, it's not like the hard, harsh dry brushing that you see on something more angular. Okay, I think we've put that up now. So if there was supposed to be a spike there that's fallen off, I know. Got Dunny in the chat. Hello there. Got Matthew says, look for Nagash, for example. Are you talking about kind of old GW style there? I actually like that old Nagash. The current Nagash, though. Yeah, the current Nagash is very much the new GW. Very spindly, very long and pointy, and quite fragile. Right, I don't think that's a connection point there. I think that's just part of the model, but you can't really tell with some of the bits until you've got the other leg stuck in. So I'm not going to totally destroy anything that looks like maybe it's not supposed to be there at this stage. Some of them you can't know for sure until you start piecing parts together. But yeah, if you want examples of the current GW style, then look at things like the new Sisters of Battle and the new Sisters of Battle and the Stormcast Eternals that are floating on scrolls. That's a pretty big thing they like to do now. Less flying bases, more people floating on scrolls. And when I get round to this Hellfane in a minute, you'll see what a chunky piece of kit Mantic like to put out. Can't think of another company I would compare the Mantic style to at the moment. But I would say, if you want an idea, look at the Mantic water elementals, and then look at the GW Idoneth Deepkin. There's a particular character that's like on a big sea cloak that's just the water with fish and stuff popping out of it. The Mantic water elemental is a similar kind of idea, but you'll see the difference between spindly and chunky when you look at those two kits side by side. I think that's probably the best comparison. Same theme, but totally different approach to achieving a similar kind of model. Just scraping out a bit here where there was a support. The thing about these guys being hideous mutants is that even if something's not the way it was intended to look when I finished, you don't have to be worried about that really, because they're supposed to be hideous. And unlike my hand, which isn't meant to be hideous and maybe finished my I wonder if it'll have a nice scar on them. Probably won't be able to see it because knuckles are, of course, famously known for their wrinkles. Insight you get on this. Chipping away at a grotesque's chin. You think of a better way to spend your Saturday? Saturday. Hard to keep track now. Chris says, I found that I enjoy working with some of the older, chunkier metal GW models like the old ogres. They're chunky enough that they'll probably break me before I can accidentally break them. Yeah, I've actually got some of the really old ogres, and you're right about that. They are very, very chunky. There were issues with some of the metal models of the past. Thinking things like I think there's been 3 dwarf gyrocopters over the years, and the middle one that was in metal, really annoying routers on it that would never stay in place, even if you pinned them. Stiff breeze would just send one of them flying off. Anytime you have something that's supposed to be a bit more dynamic and not just a blob. If you look at like an old Space Marine hero, they're all kind of in that sideways pose where the gun is like against the hip. And if there's a sword, it's always a nice big fat sword. So you're not really going to break that kind of thing too easily. But when you get more complex creatures, you really have to start pinning everything. You've had one of the old Marauder Giants. I did have one of those, and the arms would not stay on. They were pinned. You could just completely cover it in super glue from head to toe. It would still find a way of falling off. These are actually almost suspiciously mould line free so far. I keep going in, about to take something off, and then realising, oh no, that's just detail. I'm expecting more mould lines than there actually are. So, onto this body now. It's GW, they aren't meant to be handled, they're meant to be bought and then left in their boxes while you gaze at professionally built and painted and dream that you can do that. Not yet. Well, that is a possibility. Of course, there are plenty of very, very nice and handleable, that's a phrase, models from GW as well. Even some of the recent ones, not too fragile. Thinking things like the Star Drake, which is a model that I've got. Very nice and not too fragile. The guy on top, maybe his weapon could snap or something, but the actual beast itself isn't very spindly at all. It's quite nice and chunky, so I enjoyed that model. I've actually been looking at eBay, keeping my eyes peeled for some of the old classic dragons, because I always wanted to own either the zombie dragon, metal one, or the wood elf forest dragon. You know, kind of the one with its big scary hands, with its fingers out. I always wanted those 2 dragons, but I could never really justify getting them because I didn't have a wood elf army. And when I had an undead army, I didn't have it for long enough to really buy something big and juicy like a zombie dragon. I think I only had 20 skeletons and a vampire and a horse. But back in those days, I used to like start a new army every other week and just get 2 things for it and then on to something else because a child will have short attention spans at that age. Especially the people I used to play with back then used to hop between different game systems a lot. It was back and forth mainly between Fantasy and 40k. But it did get quite annoying when you would put time and effort into painting an army. Then they'd decide, actually, we don't want to play 40k anymore, we want to play Fantasy. And then a few months later, we don't want to play Fantasy anymore, we want to play 40k because the new edition just came out. And there was sprinkled in there were bits of Necromunda and Blood Bowl and Inquisitor and Gorkamorka. Gorkamorka's one that actually everyone seemed to love permanently. That didn't seem to go out of fashion. That was really fun. The first time I played Gorkamorka was in Games Workshop store, when they would give everyone a truck and you'd be driving around picking up all the barrels. And if you went round a corner without going, then you have to roll on the damage table or something like that. You know what Games Workshop staff are like. I assume that's still how they do things. Just very silly. But it was fun. Graham says, who stole Andy's mould lines? Well, someone surely did. Not been many so far. We've got a few under this guy's legs. Although again, you can never be 100% sure. Unless it's really blatant. Can't be sure whether it's actually a mould line or whether it's just a line of a muscle. But I think this one was a mould. That's why I'm scraping that away. And also keep in mind which parts of the model people will be able to actually see, because when it's sitting on the base like that, who's going to be able to see under there, right in the kind of groinal region? And I would say not many people at all. So you don't have to go too crazy in the nether regions department. That doesn't stop me painting things that people will never be able to see though, especially if it's a cloak that's going to cover the back of the model and I'm painting the cloak separately. Then I'll still put the same amount of effort into the back of the model as the front and then find that you can never see most of it. But it's that tiny bit that you can see. And if you hold the model at a particular angle, then maybe you'd be able to see it. So that's always going through my mind when I'm painting. Held it from any angle, what are you going to see? And if the answer is nothing, then don't bother with it. If there is no feasible angle where you can really see what's going on. And sometimes there's a miniature that you'll assemble and then think, why did I put that together? I painted this sub-assemblies. And then you just kind of have to be very, very careful working the brush in crevices. I think we've got kind of a mould line here. There is one of the limbs actually where I thought I saw mould lines, but let's see if we can show you this. I was thinking that there was mould lines on this, but it's not. It's just like exposed shin bone where the skin's rolled back so you can see the bone and the spikes poking out. I assume that's what it's supposed to be. But at first I thought, well, that's a mould line, but no, it's not. So we've got a tiny bit of a mould line on this back. I think even if you didn't remove this, you would never actually notice this unless you hold it at a very specific angle. Maybe on the 3rd of every month, on a full moon. I'd be able to. Scraping away. And I like the fact that it's fairly smooth, the overall texture. Then when you're scraping mould lines, you're not scraping into the detail. I've had some models, even some of the old Mantic ones, some of the Abyssal Dwarves, where the mould line will run right through a beard, which is an absolute nightmare. How are you supposed to get that removed and keep the integrity of the detail? And the answer is not really. When it's a nice smooth surface, even if you chop out a bit too much when you're removing the mould line, you can then scrape or file it down so it just looks natural, not removing the beard. It's just somebody's slightly lumpy back. Fine facial. Maybe getting some valuable insight here. Chris says, I do think there's a place for super elaborate and dynamic GW models, and I quite enjoy the look of them, although I certainly don't want to work exclusively with models that spindly and complex. Yeah, the issue I have with GW models is transporting them. They're so spindly. You need to have a case for them. It's way bigger than necessary. Take up a lot of space, but they don't fill it all, if you see what I mean. They're not very dense. Unless you're an expert in Tetris, in which case you can find ways of stacking them next to each other so they don't touch. But taking your life into your own. Okay, I think we're pretty much done. After you've assembled miniatures, of course, then you'll see that there are other mould lines that you missed as well, usually. And sometimes after you've assembled it, there'll be a particular join that doesn't match up perfectly. With resin and metal, you'll see that in particular. Usually don't so much see it with plastic. Things tend to match up better in that material. But then, typically, I want to fill that in with stuff, some of the kind of putty. Onto the limbs. Not lots of mould line. There's a little bit of one on the back of the leg, but I think that's going to be it. Nothing too severe. Very, very faint. Normally with miniatures, you don't have to tilt it to the perfect angle to actually see the mould line. These ones, they're not visible in most directions. Probably get away without removing. The worst material for undiscovered mould line is metal. If you see it when you're halfway through painting, think, I really want to go right down to the bare metal to remove that mould line that I've just spotted, and then paint over it again. That spot is going to be more vulnerable to paint chipping. Maybe not the way I paint, because I usually have about 3 layers of varnish on it. I agree on the transport thing, it's quite a pain, says Chris. Off a piece here that looks like part of the port. Being careful not to remove the nub there that's going to go into the kit. And I'm not seeing too much to clean on this piece at all, actually. Is there even a single mould line on it? See one. Calling that piece done then. Matthew, gnarly models for a gnarly stat block. Talking about these grotesques, then they are indeed gnarly. People still say gnarly. Living. Not sure which Chaos Dwarves I actually owned back, but it's hard to tell because in my household there were a lot of miniatures, but I can't remember precisely who owned what. My brother had a lot as well, and there were some that were they just seemed to be in the house all the time, but no one really used them. Remember, there was definitely some of the plastic was, I think there was a Lamassu. I don't remember who owned the Lamassu. I must have had at least one model for almost every army. But Abyssal Dwarves were going to be my first choice in. But I ended up getting the opportunity to get the Goblin army box. So I went for that and decided to go for goblins instead. And the rest is history. I don't regret that because I had quite a lot of success with my goblins over the years. Any Kings of War tournament I've actually won was with the goblins. And I think I've got a higher, at least in recent months, I've had a higher ratio of trophies with goblins than I did, especially with my undead when I started. I didn't have much success with them. But they were really just to kind of fill in the time while I was getting the goblins ready, most part. I was introduced to Mantic miniatures when I was getting Warhammer Vampire army and I wanted some cheap infantry, so I got Mantic zombies. A lot of those. Mike says, Malifaux has the worst models to transport in my opinion. They're super dynamic and look great, but so thin and fragile. It's hard to believe they are meant to be played with. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Malifaux models. They do seem very fragile, and I've heard people complaining about the assembly of them as well. Now, for some reason, you'll get an individual nose on a sprue that you're supposed to attach. Didn't make much sense to me. I'm sure from a fine detail perspective, it would be great if you could have everything separate, every tiny little face detail molded separately. I think practicality has to win. Malifaux, off the top of my head, seemed like miniatures that looked like the most towards display standard, just in terms of the sculpt, the style, everything about it. Everything looks really, really top notch in terms of sitting on the shelf. Still happily scraping away here. Haven't got that many bits left to do now. If anyone has anything they want to hear me talk about, feel free to drop it in the comments, because I'm going to be here for a while, especially if I manage to get around to the Hellfane. That is a big chunky beast. I won't be able to complete the Hellfane, I imagine. It's so big and chunky. I'm 99% sure I'll want to put some green stuff in there, so it's bound to be at least one tiny. So the Grotesques came from Mantic. And the Hellfane I ordered from Element Games. I had some vouchers, various sources. Often when you go to a tournament, especially if it's at Element Games, then you get a small voucher in there. I had quite a lot of vouchers, so I got them to merge all my vouchers together. I'm going to use one per online order. And then I ordered the Hellfane and the pile of paints as well. But I was keeping track when my order was supposed to arrive, and suddenly it jumped forward by about a month. I thought, do I just wait a month? No, you know what, I'm going to message them. And apparently 2 of the paints that I'd ordered were holding up the order because they were out of stock of them. So I just got refunded on those 2 paints and then send it out. Didn't have to wait another month for my. It would be nice if that was kind of automated, so it would tell you when an item is holding up your order without you having to choose it up yourself. Graham, some of the mosquito figure's legs are so thin they will snap in half while being clipped off the sprue just from the shockwave that passes down its length. Malifaux. Yeah, I've had that happen with a few different miniature lines, snipping something off the sprue. But if it's coming off a sprue, on the plus side, that does mean it's going to be plastic, so it should be easy enough to repair. Right, so this is one of the more complicated bits so far here. So on the end of this claw that's nice and rounded, then there's a little bit that I want to snip off, smooth it down. But if I just start going like that, chance that it'll tear further down the claw, rip off. So I'm going to press it against this cutting mat, do it that way, so there's nowhere for it to go. Almost. Okay, this is actually a cutting mat with some milliput instructions on it. Protect it from paint. No, I don't think there's any paint. Another one on the other claw there. You're getting lots of top-notch miniature cleaning tips here, and I'm not even charging you for it. Should be really. Be one of those live streamers that has like the scrolling last donation $500, Billy from Texas, and then someone will see that and think, hey, I want to be the latest donation. They throw in some money as well. It's like a communal spirit type. You see one person donating on the screen and they want to join in. Like infectious. It obviously works because so many people do it. But I haven't really bothered. I think I did it once on a live show as a parody, where I had a still image showing fake donations on it. But I haven't resorted to that yet. I think it's very big on Twitch stream. Not really a big fan of in general. And then they'll have like a song or something that plays when they get a new subscriber. Builds interaction with the audience and makes them feel like they're actually contributing. And then they throw money at you. The work. Sean says, sorry I'm late, what's in the build pile? These are Abyssal Dwarf grotesques. And we're currently just cleaning up the limbs, which isn't too difficult a process because they're pretty clean to begin with. I haven't found too many mould lines to scrape off so far. Most of the bits that I'm removing are where I snipped off the supports and there's a little tiny bit left over. Then just smoothing out any little imperfections I find that I'm supposed to. Doc says, Malifaux's a great game with great models, but yeah, the assembly is mind-boggling. I put together a bunch of cats to scale, tiny domestic house cats that were in 3 pieces for some reason, no bigger than a couple of grains of rice. Why? Why indeed? Have the company ever answered any questions on the fiddly assembly of the pictures, or are they one of those kind of Willy Wonka style secrets society? Like GW used to be, all very behind closed doors and you would never really get any glimpse into the inner workings until the last few years they started interacting with the community. The age of social media, they find the Malifaux, do the company, do Weird actually join in with the joke that their miniatures are so fiddly? Kind of the way that GW jumped on board the whole too thin coats thing and turned that into more of a phenomenon than it was. Okay, just 2 limbs and a head to go. Then we can actually start sticking them together. But we've got a mould line under this foot, which is the best place for a mould line because no one would ever see it, so I don't even know why I'm bothering to remove it. But I am anyway, just in case. And then another mould line inside the joint here, so you would never actually see it. But again, just in case it impacts on the adhesion, 2 pieces, you never know. Let's scrape that off as well. I suppose if I have any terrible accidents with these miniatures and they just snap, it's going to reflect very badly on Mantic, isn't it? I've got a bit of a mould line on this leg. Maybe the thickest mould line I've seen so far. Nothing the knife can't handle. And it continues up by. It's all on the back of the leg though. Less the thing on the front that I haven't seen. That a mould line there. And maybe a mini mould line. You can see a bit of a mould line in there. Two spikes. Okay, one more claw. Scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think they should. Words have never been truer. Can we create a cat in 3 pieces perfectly to scale? 28. Yes. Should we? Probably not. I think with GW it's a conspiracy with their miniatures. They want you to buy bigger and bigger, taller carry cases for your models. They'll have like Arcaton, who's already big enough on a huge beast, but then he's sitting right up on the end of his tail. So he's almost double the height that he could be if he posed him differently. This claw is an interesting one because the claws are kind of bent at weird angles. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like that, or whether I should get the hot water out and, quote, fix them. Because it may be that they're supposed to be at that angle. And even if they're not, then these are hideous mutants anyway. But why would it matter if their claw straight? The answer is it would not matter at all. Probably not going to attempt to correct that. Resin is quite nice and soft. Haven't seen any evidence of it being brittle yet. When I say nice and soft, that means you can kind of scrape it down quite easily without risking stuff it. Not one of those claw situations where it's curved, but you don't want to be too violent with it. So just against the coconut. And almost finished cleaning up the pieces now. Just this head, which just has a little bit underneath the chin there where there was a support. And get super glue out in a second. That's going to be exciting, isn't it? Kind of excitement that you live for in the community. Especially in these dark times when there aren't going to be too many games being played. There is, of course, for Kings of War, there's Universal Battle, which I refuse to attempt at the moment because whoever runs it hasn't responded to any of my emails regarding transferring my lifetime subscription to Universal Battle 1 over to the Universal Battle 2 now that 1 has been abandoned. And I'm not going to buy another subscription when I already have a lifetime one. So if people want to actually email whoever runs Universal Battle on my behalf, start some terrible online harassment campaign. Well, I wouldn't condone a harassment campaign. Maybe a gentle nudge campaign. I'd condone that. It's not like he's going to get bombarded. There's only 12 people in here. How many of them actually can? Okay, all the pieces cleaned up. Where is the super glue? Go. So let's have a look at some of the comments. Mark says, Andy, what are your favourite models to build? Favourite models to build? That is a tough one. In terms of actual standard kits and putting them together, which are the most fun? Definitely not anything made of Restic, because there's always gaps and I always have to bend them and green stuff them. So in terms of Mantic models, not Restic. Most fun to put together. Probably some of the less fragile GW kits that are just really easy and go together very nicely indeed. Something like Space Marine Terminators, something like that, because they're nice and big and chunky. So I think they're probably most fun to put together. But in terms of most fun to build that isn't a standard kit, then I like doing ridiculous conversions. I don't do enough of it nowadays, but this bad boy is up for spraying and painting very soon. This hideous conversion for my Night Stalker's army. It's going to be a Shadow Hulk. Tentacles where his head should be. He's got faces all over him. He's got little creatures sitting on him. He's got tentacles left, right, and centre. He's got a face contemplating on the back of his head, the back of his neck area there. More faces. This is the most fun, when you can just go nuts with a model like this. And then at the other end of the spectrum, conversions, a very simple conversion that's also going to be for my Night Stalkers is this Dread Fiend. And this is just a pair of legs with a head on it. A giant head, obviously. But I was going to add more to it. I was going to have like spider's legs coming out of his eyes or something like that. But I think just the fact that it's a head on legs is creepy enough. So I don't even need to bother. And then I've got some green stuff on his back there to kind of blend in the leg detail up there. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I would like to get another Hellboy frog monster boss so that I can put my other giant head on it and make two of them. But I think adding anything else to this, I think, would kind of ruin it. It's the simplicity. It's just the fact people look at it and think, is that just a head on a pair of legs? That is ridiculous. And I think people are going to like this. Let's see. Doc eagerly awaiting some Mantic Ratkin. Yeah, I've seen some of the new... I think they've got new rats. Are there some new rats on the horizon, or have I imagined that? Who says that is sufficiently creepy? Yes. Mark says Shadow Hulk might be able to go into the Destruction Army for Age of Sigmar. Well, it's quite... If anything, I think it's ended up looking a bit on the nurgly side, because I've gone for lots of weirdness on it. But if anything can justify that in Kings of War, it's probably Night Stalkers, because they are just nightmarish, hideous creatures. Okay, let's get super gluing. So we have to establish which pieces go on which miniature first. So we could look at the box, but why would we want to do that when we can just try and fit the pieces until it works? So it's not going to be that one. Not going to be that one. Nope, that's an arm. We're looking for a leg. Looks like it could be it. Oh. Nope. Maybe I should actually look at the box. Okay, what have I done with the box? Okay. So. I see. So maybe it is this piece? Yes, because I was thinking that its foot would be flat to the ground, but this one actually isn't. I think that is the correct piece for him, so we'll put that there. And what about this guy? That looks like it fits. Is his foot supposed to be kind of at that weird angle? Well, let's try this guy. I don't know if you actually have any options with these. Okay, that certainly looks like him. I mean, his feet are facing the wrong way, but he is a hideous monstrosity, and that's how it's shown in the picture. That's definitely his leg. the head. The only one without a head is this one, so that's got to be him. Go with him. So this is the only leg remaining, so this must be his. One of his feet must be off the ground. So that guy's got 3 legs. This one has 2. This one has 2, and they're kind of flat. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're meant to be flat to each other. They almost are. And looking at the picture, it does look like they are flat there. I got his leg the wrong way around. No. Well, it does fit in perfectly there, actually. So that is correct. And if I want it to be flat to the ground, then I think I would have to heat it up and bend one of the feet. But you can have one of them at a slight tilt. Now for the arm. Now, I don't know whether you get any options with the arms here, but if you do, I'll find out on the next box of them and assemble those differently. So we're just going to put them together as standard first. So I think this guy has the big club kind of spiky arms. Where's this one? That one fits in nicely there. So presumably this one is going to go on this side. It's tempting just to stick them in as soon as you discover where they go, but sometimes you'll get to the end of the miniature and then find that there's a piece that doesn't fit anywhere. You'll think, you know what, I should have waited, because just because a piece seems like it fits somewhere, there might actually be something else that only fits in that one spot. I'm guessing that piece is going to go in there. That seems like it fits. Then we've got the arms for these 2 bad boys now. So what do I have? This guy has kind of the stabby arm, I think. What kind of angle? Stabbing, pointing one directly downwards. Is that going to be this one or this one? Okay, there's the front facing arm. So this one will have to be the downward pointing arm. There we go. And look like that. Which means that these 2 arms belong to this guy here. And or there. So that, and then the other arm. Make so pointing downwards like that. Okay, let's get them stuck then. Is it a limbo contest, those legs? Yes, it is. So we're going to attach leg. Don't know how easily these are going to stick, but I'd anticipate I won't have to hold on to the pieces for too long. Sometimes if you apply too much super glue, it takes a long time to dry. I haven't picked a basing scheme yet for these guys. If I have for these guys I have, I'm talking about the Night Stalkers. I haven't picked basing scheme yet. And got a lot of different things in mind. Obviously the Abyssal Dwarfs, I've already got the scheme, got a full army done. Night Stalkers, I'm thinking about the weirdest possible thing I can do for that army, their bases. Obviously I've gone all out weird on the miniatures themselves, so you've got to match that with the basing as well. Guys, I think I'm putting too much super glue on, then It's quite easy to get them in the right angle actually because there's chains on the back to connect over the two pieces. So just putting it in place for a few seconds. What's everyone else working on right now? Obviously, lots of people in isolation. I assume people getting their hobby stuff done. What hobby stuff exactly? Okay, leg attached. Next guy. Put his third leg on. At the correct angle, which seems to be like this leg is definitely off the ground. Bit of a tripod effect going on with this. How many legs the Grotesque champion has? Put the box down here. The Grotesque champion has, looks like 2 legs. This is a third one at a different angle. Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, the Grotesque champion also has 3 legs. See if we can get a shot. That's him. I'll do him after the Hellfane if there's time. I think we're not going to get round to him during this stream. AK is going to apply some washing to a few skelly boys. Some washes. Yeah, skeletons do take to washes very nicely. All that bone. Okay, let's go back to this guy and attach the arms. Let's just go totally nuts and apply both the arms at the same time. Let's live dangerously. We're crazy on this channel. I'll have to just remember which one was which. This is the forward. Yep. Pointy forward arm there. Maybe it was a mistake putting super glue on both joints at once because I'll pull this for a little bit. AK has 10 minis to finish for the army to be totally done. Wall. Yeah, sometimes if you can't plough through an army, you've just got to get rid of it. One or the other. Got to get it done or get it gone. What I've done. I remember that I had my Age of Sigmar Caradron Overlords army, and I painted 3 units and a character, and half painted the next unit, and I just didn't want to look at them ever again. They were taking such a long time to paint. I think they look really nice, but the way I chose to paint them was just too time consuming. So I never got a full army done. And they were just staring at me and killing my hobby motivation for months, because I couldn't justify working on anything else because I'd spent so much money on those. So in the end I just sold them. Kept the ones that I'd painted, and I actually ended up making a profit on the army because I sold the spare guns as well out of the boxes. Right, there's that guy fully assembled. So the only other thing I'm going to do is drill holes in the feet of all these with a drill so that I can pin them not only to their bases but also to whatever I'm going to paint them on. Okay, let's do this guy's arm. We'll just glue one at a time this time. Already lived dangerously. Assume we left that arm here because it's the correct one. Joint. Doc is working on Ratkin and Forces of the Abyss. I was so close to getting Abyssals as my next army before the Abyssal Dwarves. I even bought an Efreet. So I won a Mantic voucher at a tournament, and I bought my Clash of Kings ticket and an Efreet. And I was going to do Abyssals next. But I also had a bag of Immortal Guard. Probably from a Mantic bargain bin or a crazy box or something in the past. and I thought, you know what, I feel like painting those. That could be fun. So I painted the Immortal Guard, and they were actually a lot of fun, and I thought they looked really good. So that kind of led me to jump straight onto the Abyssal Dwarf train. Abyssal Dwarves were meant to be my 3rd edition army, but I got them ready in time for Clash of Kings. So I ended up playing them in 2nd edition and doing quite well, winning a couple of trophies before 2nd edition ended with them. And in 3rd edition I've won 1 trophy with them, I think, 1 2nd place. Although at that tournament I did win all my games. It was just a 3-round tournament with 28 players. So though 3 isn't really enough games to separate the pack when you've got 28 players. So there were 3 people that won all their games at that event. So I ended up finishing 2nd. Which is the 2nd time that has happened to me. The other one wasn't Kings of War, it was in Dreadball. It was at the UK National Championships at Franticon last year. I won all my games in the Dreadball tournament, but that was only enough to finish 2nd. It's very possible for that to happen in other events because some scoring systems that people use heavily favour how you win the game and not just actually winning it. That guy assembled. He's looking quite happy. Although his foot is up the back, which is fine, I suppose. He's all done, and now we're on to this guy. So let's stick his head on first. This has been a pretty quick and painless process assembling these guys. Pondering doing some hinty stream as well at some point. Lining up this neck sinew correctly. I don't know if breathing on the super glue actually makes it dry quicker, but it feels like it does. I'm not happy with that bit there. I'm actually going to cut off more of the little nub that goes in the socket. So just need some tissue. Super glue there. Completely happy with it there. So I'm just going to tiny bit off the end of it. There we go. And we'll see if that's more snug fit now. If it's not, then I'll just have to green stuff in the gap. Might not be an issue. Length of a bit. Thing somewhere. A teensy little gap around this guy's neck side. I'm going to fill that later with stuff. Very minor gap. See if you can see the bit of a gap in his neck there. It's an alright spot for a gap though. Easy enough to get the green. You can see on that side it's nice and perfect. Probably a little bit I could have shaved off somewhere that made it go down extra smooth. Okay, let's put the arms on. Which of the arms is supposed to go on this side? No, it's not. But I've just spotted that I missed something on this arm. I'm going to just shave that off quick. A little bit sticking out where there was a support that I haven't noticed just now. That nice and smooth. Okay, I think this is the right arm for this side. Super glue. Find out if I'm completely wrong. Yes, I am. This one. Perfect fit. So even though you don't get a champion, this guy looks more champion-y than the others because he's got that extra leg. So in the other box that I've got of these, I may just assemble 2 of them for now, since I'm probably going to put 5 of them on a horde base. So I might leave out the guy with the extra leg, and I could potentially use him as a second champion in addition to the actual champion. Final arm, and then we should be done with these guys, and we can move on to the hell phase. Oh no, I've knocked off the other arm. Dry. Where's that box gone? Let's put this arm back on because yeah, so the other arm is kind of down. That. Seems like there's a little bit sticking out there that's preventing it going into the slot easily that I haven't removed. Bit of snippage on the corner. If I've accidentally taken off too much, then it'll just put plate. It's a very smooth piece of the miniature, so it'll be easy to do. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely the most fiddly part so far, but it could be me trying to enroll. I think may end up with a little bit of a gap in there. Then we'll be out. a bit on there. It's not supposed to be there. Opening off that area even more. Okay, I think that's the angle. Question. Yeah, it's in much. I think we've still got people watching this. Those comments coming. What do you want to see on this channel, by the way, during the lockdown? Do you want to see me painting stuff? Do you want to see any particular PC games? Because I've got Space Hulk Deathwing, which I played yesterday. I've got Warhammer Dark Omen. I've got Warhammer. I've got Space Marine. I've got Mark of Chaos, which I don't think I've ever played. I've got Dawn of War, Dawn of War 2. Not Dawn of War 3, because that's garbage. Yeah, I think that might be the best we can do. Comparing it to the box art, got it pointing in the right direction. Okay, actually, yeah, even on the box, that piece doesn't look like it's lined up perfectly. So I think I'll get in there with the green stuff. See if I can. So, front there's a little bit of a gap underneath the shoulder pad there. The arm. Could be fixable, but it actually fits perfectly at the back there. Fits in perfectly at this angle on the back, but on the front there's a teensy bit of a gap. So I think possibly with more filing down on one side it could have. But I think I'm just going to green stuff the. And actually, the angle he stood at, you'll never actually see that gap. Even from this angle, you can't really see it, can you? That's underneath the model because he's kind of angled downwards. So that's going to be fine. Okay, super glue away for now. Box away, and it's getting hot in here. So the jacket is coming off, even though you can't see the jacket anyway. Stu Rats, the Porkening Saga has 3 private videos, but also seems to have a few chapters missing. I'd like to see the missing battles. Yes, the Porkening Saga was split between my channel and Dreddy's channel. And 3 of the videos were on Dreddy's channel and 3 of them are on mine, and all the videos on Dreddy's channel have been made private. So that's just a thing people do sometimes if they don't want their videos to be viewed by the public anymore for a while. They just make them all private. They want to move on to a different chapter in their life, and Dreddy has moved on to other broadcasting avenues that aren't YouTube. So you can still watch, obviously, half of the Porkening Saga. Okay, I'm getting the Hellfane out now. So we'll move these guys out the way. Let's just have a look at them first, I suppose. So this guy. This guy's the pointiest of the bunch with his hand weapons, at least. When I say hand weapons, I mean it looks like he's got some hideous, huge rocks just taped to his wrists, which I'm sure in any kind of combat sport would be highly frowned upon. Then we've got this guy with 3 legs, who looks a bit more of a champion than the others. And then we've got this guy with the very kind of pokey hands, big claws. You just take your eyes out. So put them to one side. And we're on to the Hellfane. I don't know if we're going to finish the Hellfane on this live stream, by the way, because I think we've already been going well over an hour. So I might just do the clean-up on it, or just show you the parts and then come back and do this tomorrow. We've still got 12 people viewing now, so yeah, there's quite a lot of pieces here. This is just the first bag as well. So there's one bag, and the other bag has all the fiddly bits in it. All the actual dwarves that sit on it, and the decorative pieces by the looks of it. And obviously the base as well. So we'll stick that to one side, and I'll start chopping away at this. So what I might do, once I've cleaned this up a bit, I might finish this tomorrow, and then maybe paint something as well. I might spray some of my Night Stalker stuff and get a bit of paint on that. I was waiting for some purple contrast paints to arrive. Should make them quite easy to paint. Getting off some big nuggets here. This is a massive chunk of resin. It's just several massive chunks. And look at this, it's just an absolute beast. And that's the underneath there, where the legs will go on, and then the top. This thing will sit on there, presumably. And all that, and the head. It's like the ultimate lava rock rhino. And when I say the ultimate, I can't think of any other lava rock rhinos out there, so I don't think it has much competition. Yeah, the mention of the Porkening Saga did make me think that quite a lot of people that subscribed to my channel in the last few years did originally come for Age of Sigmar content. Barely been any of that on the channel in the last year or two. Been mostly focused on Kings of War, and then other Mantic stuff has been sprinkled in there as well. That's mainly because I just haven't been playing Age of Sigmar this year. I wouldn't mind playing more of it if people around here were more open to it, I think. I'm not really that eager to actively seek it out. I think I just prefer Kings of War at the moment. Obviously I do have a big Age of Sigmar army, so it would be nice to play it at some point. Obviously right now it's going to be difficult to find opponents for any kind of game system, but we'll see when the lockdown's over if I get back into that again. I'm sure Mr. Remington Steele would like if I got back into Age of Sigmar a bit. He's been doing a lot of painting. I'm sure he'll tell you all about that if we do another attempt at a Vermintide live stream. This looks like a little exhaust pipe with a bit dangling off it here, but I'm hesitant to chop that bit off yet. So I'm going to leave that for now, just in case that is actually a piece that's meant to be there. Figuring out a paint scheme for one of my Stormcast heroes, says Chris. I'm going with magenta and gold and trying to figure out what other colours fit well with those. Stu Rat says green. It's the opposite colour of magenta. When I paint things, I generally just think in my head which colours will look nice without thinking too much about the colour wheel. And then sometimes it turns out that the colours are actually supposed to be complementing each other. Now, obviously I paint a lot of orange, and I think blue is supposed to go quite well with that. And some of the orange armies that I have do blue as a colour as well. No idea where that piece just went, but I heard kind of ricochet sounds. Bring back Andy and Remington Steele show. I don't care what you talk about, it's just fun to watch and listen to you guys. Well, we are actually going to do a show soon. because the stuff that we would like to talk about, we'd like to be somewhat well informed on it, and because we weren't really following the new Age of Sigmar stuff very much, it seemed a bit silly to just continue doing shows on something that we weren't really that interested in at the time. However, GW did recently tease some old world stuff. They are returning to the old world in a few years, they announced, and they did tease some pictures of some new Kislev stuff. So at the very least, we could do a show and talk about that. In general, we could just do shows and look at just the entire miniatures industry scene and just look at new releases and stuff and talk about what we've been painting. So we're going to try and get back into that, I think. It was obviously good for my channel because it brought a lot of new subscribers and it got a lot of views every week. So we'll look into getting that back. The other issue is that Google Hangouts disappeared, which is obviously what we used for streaming, but I've looked into ways of doing that now with other systems. The software I'm using for streaming this, not that difficult to get another person in there. More complicated than it was with Google Hangouts, but it's not too ridiculous. There's a massive in this. Probably the biggest resin model that I own this now. I've got some really big plastic models. Got the Star Drake for my Stormcast Eternals. I've got the, what else have I got that's big? I've got an Undead Mortis engine. Kings of War, I've got the Ancient Winged Half-Breed, which is plastic and metal. But in terms of resin, I think this is the biggest, heftiest chunk I've got so far, because I don't have any Forge World stuff really. They usually have all the giant resin stuff out there in the world. Okay, so I think we can see here that the exhaust is supposed to look like that, so I'm going to snip that other bit off there. That's obviously not meant to be there. And it just fell into my keyboard. Danger of doing your hobby stuff right at the computer desk. Well, it's a computer desk / hobby desk. See all the paints I've got around here. Well, you can see some of them, but they actually extend all the way underneath my monitor. Okay, I think we're almost going to be done with this stream now. But I'll probably get on another one tomorrow and actually assemble this thing, and then maybe do some painting as well. I might continue the cleanup later on. Not sure whether I'll stream that or not. We shall see. My webcam, by the way, is currently sitting on a tiny little tripod on top of an ancient ice cream tub. Now we've got this magnificent. Not seeing a lot of mould lines on this thing. Have any real serious mould lines so far? There's a bit of one there, not much. The fact that it's kind of this jagged rocky thing anyway means that I might not be able to see any mould lines that are there. Seen one yet. A serious one that runs all the way along the piece anyway. Based on the holes at the bottom, it didn't look like the two halves lined up. Let's see now, because I've just chipped a bit more away. So they're lining up a bit better now. I've still got more to do, got more to remove, a bit more sticking out there that I could slice away with the knife. So we'll see when it's totally sliced up. And it should meet almost perfectly. And if it's slightly out, I don't think it's going to actually matter in this instance, because if you look at the front there, those two halves don't match up perfectly. Then the head's going on there anyway, so you won't be able to see it. And on the top, let's see, this bit is going to go there. So most of that's going to be hidden anyway, I think. But it is resin, so there's always a possibility that halves of giant pieces like this won't match up perfectly. So the green stuff may have to come out when it's finished. We'll find out at the end. But we've got a lot more scraping to do on that. Who says that's a lot closer than it looked before? Yeah, I scraped off a few pieces since I initially tried to. You know, this piece here, not sure whether those meant to be there on the top of this, but yes, what I might do in the next video is assemble this thing and then do some green stuff work on the grotesques, because like I said, there was that one armpit that I might do that. That'd be interesting for some people to see if they don't do that themselves. It'd be a nice insight into us top-notch professional hobbyists. By professional, I mean amateurish. Although there does come a point where when you've been painting for a long time and improving and trying out different techniques, you notice that you're seeing more models posted on Facebook that your own painting is either comparable to, or you think might be, your own painting might even be better than it. Whereas in the past, a few years ago, when I would look on Facebook, anything that was painted on there, just automatically think it was better than mine. Because my painting was very, very simple. But recently I've been trying out a lot of different techniques and putting more effort in, especially if you look at the metallics on my Abyssal Dwarves. It's like an extra layer or two of highlighting and more work that's gone into them compared to even if you go back to my Stormcast Eternals, which I still think look good. But there's an extra level with the Abyssal Dwarves. Just like an extra level of shine with just little bits of silver on the metallics. And just things you pick up like that over the years. And you can see a progression in someone's painting when they're constantly posting pictures. And then when new people come in, and you think, actually, yeah, my model looks as good or better than that. And there is a moment that everyone has as well, depending which company's models you're painting. When you see a model on their website, on the official website, and you think, actually, the one I painted is better than their official pictures. It depends, though, because if you look at Mantic, some of their dragons on the website, I think, don't look very good. So I think, for example, my Ancient Winged Half-Breed looks better than some of their dragons on the website. But some of their stuff on their more recent stuff is incredibly nice looking. Since the Empire of Dust onwards, I think, they've really upped their game in terms of the quality on their website. So, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to paint anything that matches up to this Hellfane, for example, on the box. Probably not, because that does look ridiculously nice. You can usually tell when someone's going to be a good painter from their early work, though. What I look for is, what are they attempting? If they're kind of like I used to be, and I still am to an extent, where I just try to make everything as neat as possible and don't do anything too advanced, then if you stick with that, you do kind of have a ceiling on your quality. Everything's going to look okay for a tabletop standard, but what you want to look for if you're looking for someone that's going to be a really top-notch painter, you're looking for them to be trying things and maybe getting it wrong. Because if they keep trying those effects, like your complicated lighting and blending and all those fancy pants things that I only dream of doing most of the time, you see them attempting that and it's not quite come off the first few times, and you think, okay, that person's going to be really good in a couple of years when they've nailed that technique, because you've seen what it looks like when people do it well. So if you commit to practicing those things, then you can put yourself on the next level up. So I'm definitely only kind of mid-tier when it comes to painting. There are a lot of people out there that are vastly better than me. And I don't think, with the amount of time I put into painting, I don't think it would even be possible for me to reach the standard that some people are at nowadays. Some people in the Kings of War community, they're painted miniatures. Each piece of one is like a work of art on itself, on its own. Not just the miniature itself, like just the arm. You could look at that for a while and think, that is very complicated. How did you even come up with applying those techniques to the arm miniature? Because when you look at it really close up, too close up even, you might think, what's that bit of colour doing there? But then when you zoom out to an eye level, where you would naturally look at something, think, oh, I get it. It's like that shine there, which you don't understand if you zoom in too close, but you see it in context with the rest of the model, and you see what's supposed to be reflecting. And it's just an artistic eye that some people probably never have. I will probably never have. Some people just seem to be absolute beasts. Okay, I think I've snipped off all the main chunks of this, so it's all that remains is the scrapage with the knife on this one now. So I think I'll save that for either maybe later, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. And I might do some green stuff work tomorrow as well. Maybe some painting. I've got the Grotesque champion as well to assemble, so I think we'll continue with all this next time. And this should actually make me work faster as well, because I tend to just do a little bit of hobby stuff and then take a break from it and do something else. But if I'm doing these videos possibly every day, then that will inspire me to plow through all this and get it done, because I'm in the ultimate hobby zone now. I was holding off and just kind of working on these things, just like tweaking away at them with the green stuff and all that. But now that all my paints and all my models have arrived, it's just like ultimate hobby zone now, just plowing through everything, hopefully going nuts for the next few weeks and just churning everything out off the production line, getting things painted. I would like to get all the grotesques, Hellfane done, and those 2 Night Stalker conversions, and I would also like to do my Night Stalker butchers fairly soon as well, because I've got enough for a full unit of those. So I want to get those done. I need to figure out my basing for the Night Stalkers. I've also got these regular Abyssal Dwarves as well, the Black Souls. And I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to get round to them. I'm going to leave them in the box for now, because sometimes I get into the zone of building miniatures, and I build too many at once, and then it becomes overwhelming, and I don't get round to painting them fast enough. So they're going to stay in the box until I've cleared out some of this other stuff, and then I'll move on to them. I think I am going to paint them as Black Souls, because I've got the 2 regiments that I usually use as Immortal Guard, but I have run them as Black Souls as well. But they are Immortal Guard models, and I've got a full horde of Decimators, so do I really need more Decimators? It's tempting, but I think I could do with some actual official Black Souls rather than just using the Immortal Guard models. Anything else I want to mention before I wrap this one up? Anything within grabbing reach that I can show you? I've got a pile, not exactly a pile of shame behind me, but I've got a load of models back there that were on the painting table, and I've just moved them out of the way because I'm not imminently going to get round to them. I'm only really inspired to paint something if I can see where I'm going to use it and how it's going to fit in. These Abyssal Dwarves are obviously going to go straight into my army and be used as soon as the lockdown's over. I can immediately see a purpose for them. I've got lists planned already with these models in it. However, things like this, which I'm going to get out here, like this Goblin Wingit, I don't have any immediate plans to use goblins in 3rd edition yet. I will do at some point, obviously, that's why I've started it, but I need the motivation to finish it that comes from some kind of end goal being to use it on the table. And at the moment, I'm not seeing that right now. So I'm not that motivated to finish that. The same with the Morpup launcher that I've got as well. But the good thing about getting things half finished, I don't have to be motivated to half paint something. I can put the base coats on something and then be done with it for a while. And what that's going to do is when I do want to get around to it, it's going to make it easier to get motivated to get on with it because some of the work's already done. So it's a long process. I've had models sit on my painting table for up to a year sometimes, partly finished, and then I'll just go in and just plough through them and finish the rest. Did that first example I can think of that would have been traceable back on this channel would be my Dwarf hammerers when they brought out the new Dwarves in the final Warhammer Fantasy edition. I had those on my disc for a very long time, and the Undead Mortis engine as well. Really long time I had that just sprayed green, and then one day I thought, you know what, time to finish that, and just plowed through it and got it out of there. Anything where you realise that's not going to be done, you just need to move it because it's just going to demotivate you if it's staring at you. Get things done or get them moved on. If it's something that you can't possibly part with, maybe because it's too rare or valuable, and it's just sitting in a box, you know you don't want to get rid of it, but you need to put it out of sight, I think. Anything that's just looking at you is just accusing you with its eyes, just calling you lazy and demotivating you, dragging you down. You need to have a nice, I say a clean hobby space, and then look at this hideous mess with paints flying around everywhere, boxes of painted miniatures all over the place. But in your immediate line of sight, you don't want things looking at you with those accusing eyes, I would say. So that's going to be the takeaway from the video, I think, my final tip for the day. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description, of course. There's all the social media stuff down there. In my Facebook group and Twitter, I'll be posting whenever there's going to be a new video. If you're not, probably put it in the Kings of War Fanatics groups as well, if you keep your eye on that. And obviously, also there's all my fundraising sources down there for the channel. If you want to give me all your life savings, then feel free, because that's what people do with their favourite online broadcasters. They just shovel untold amounts of cash at them, and yeah, why not get a piece of that sweet action? Speaking of donations, actually, someone did message me before this broadcast and asked if they could send me something, and I don't know what it's going to be yet, so whether it's going to be like a severed horse head, or whether it's going to be some miniatures, or a rule book for something, or just an orange dice. I've had people just send me a dice before just because they saw that it was orange and thought, hey, Andy'd like that. So remains to be seen what that's going to be. Time to wrap this one up then, folks. Chris says, oh boy, I've got lots of little accusing eyes looking at me. Good tips, though. Yeah, you just got to think, does it cause you anxiety, this miniature sitting on your desk? And are you going to get around to it anytime soon? If not, get it out the way. Either get rid of it completely or just put it somewhere out of sight, I would say. Okay, wrapping this one up then. So all that remains to be said, I think, is night out. Whatever you